Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is June 13th, and right now we're looking at the visible satellite imagery. You can see the system pushing through British Columbia here, helping to bring this onshore flow across western Washington, western Oregon, really cooling things down. 84 in Seattle yesterday, much cooler today. But as you go east of the mountains, you still see the thunderstorm potential here, those cumulus clouds building up. We'll take a look at that detail here in a moment, and you've probably heard that chatter about that big trough here. I talked a little bit about it yesterday, setting up over the Pacific Northwest. We'll look at that in some detail here in a moment. And if you want to save 10% off this nice, fully affordable home weather station that's very impressive here, click on that link down below. Solar powered, totally wireless. It's got an ultrasonic anemometer. The haptic rain gauge can tell you how long it rained at your house, for example. All kinds of good data stored in the cloud for you for free. And this is kind of looking at the UV index the last few days. You can see yesterday some pretty strong sun rays out there, and of course much cloudier today across western Washington. It's just one of the many interesting things you can look at on your weather station on the web. This is looking at Seattle temperatures yesterday. 84, normal is 70, and we're going to have a hard time getting to 70 today, and definitely much cooler than yesterday. But look back in 2019, 95 degrees just 4 years ago on this day, and the overnight low only got down to 65. And if you look way back towards 1972, we only hit 56 degrees on this day, and in 1952, we hit 38 degrees in the overnight low. So pretty impressive for June there. Always fun to go back and look at old temperature records. This is National Weather Service Spokane. Look at Moses Lake, Ellensburg, Wenatchee. Wenatchee and Ellensburg could get gusts up towards 50 miles per hour. Some pretty strong winds coming off the east slopes of the Cascades, especially across some of the higher terrain out there. And that's why they put those wind farms out there, folks. Generates a lot of energy. Look at Ritzville, 39, and a little bit less the further you go off to the east. This is thunderstorm potential here, and this is percentages. So you can see Lake Chelan and Moses Lake would be 1%, and the threat gets bigger the further you move off to the east. Seattle-Tacoma, gale warnings down the Strait of Juan de Fuca for some gusty winds this evening as well, and out over the water here. This is looking at Portland, and they're talking about some gusty west winds as well. Hood River, the Dalles, and some of the higher terrain could get up, towards 45 miles per hour there. So just be aware of it. It's not unheard of this time of year, but it is fairly rare. This is dry and windy Tuesday, high fire danger here. National Weather Service Pendleton just reminding people with these gusty west winds, these fires can exhibit rapid growth. Now, taking a look, National Weather Service Missoula, Glacier National Park, but they're talking about late this week and early next week, and that's the trough we're going to look at here in a minute. But you could see even some upper elevation snowfall, and that could even fall as snowfall across some of the Cascades and the higher terrain of British Columbia as well. This is day one thunderstorm outlook. You saw the graphic there with Spokane, pushes off to the east, and just for Montana and Wyoming on day three. This is looking at a wider view of things here. Here's Japan. Here's Alaska, there's Hawaii, there's Washington. You can see these reds here, and you can imagine more of a subtropical, tropical air mass, and this kind of correlates to where ridging occurs. But look across the Western Pacific, a lot of energy out there, a lot of warmth here, and watch what happens with this. So it helps develop this very strong storm out across the Pacific Ocean, just south of the Aleutian Islands, which in turn brings some very warm air northward here and builds a big ridge here over the Pacific. But in turn, you can see it drops that trough over the Pacific Northwest here. So this big ridge is going to in turn bring some very chilly temperatures here as we go on into this weekend and on into early next week. Something to watch here as we go in the next couple of days. This is looking at the European. This is hot off the presses, 12Z. This west wind down the Strait of Juan de Fuca. No joke tonight. You get some gusts up into the mid-40s here. Strong winds on the east slopes of the Cascades of Washington, Oregon, out over the Columbia Basin a bit here as well. And watch out, mariners out there, Nia Bay, out towards where the ocean meets the Strait of Juan de Fuca. There's just off of Vancouver Island, southern Oregon there as well. Pretty breezy conditions going on. And the European, this is max wind gust, probably mid-40s, Strait of Juan de Fuca, and of course windier over the open ocean and some of the east slopes of the Cascades. This is the NAM. If I put this all the way at 60 hours, you can see some of those big gusts here, Strait of Juan de Fuca and east slopes as well. And this is just showing you there is a chance of a bit of a convergent zone here. So as we go through the afternoon and evening today, you can kind of see it forming there over some of Snohomish and King County, kind of persisting over some of the foothills here. Nothing too crazy, but you'll notice it out there with that precipitation following in some areas, probably extending on in through Wednesday morning, tomorrow morning. Now this is looking at the European, the 12Z, hot off the presses as well. Put that into motion. You can see the system moving through BC into Alberta, bringing some much needed rainfall out there. As we go into the future a little bit more, we build a bit of a ridge here, but then we quickly break it down and it starts to move out over the Pacific. And you can see the troughing kind of opening up here. Multiple rounds of precipitation possible. I'll have to watch these systems one by one to see how they affect us. But you can see some of the upper elevations could be getting snowfall out of the system with a pretty chilly upper level trough setting up over the region here. And you can kind of see this as we go on towards 200 hours. Not much of a let up here, kind of a storm train going as we go on into the following week. This is the GFS 12Z, hot off the presses, total precipitation in inches. And again, we're still a few days away from these events here, but we're just going to kind of take a look, as you can see some big precipitation amounts for some of Alberta, British Columbia. That's good news for potential fires out there as we go towards the summer months. And then you can see mainly thunderstorm activity out here, but then you can see that trough sets up and we're going to get multiple rounds of precipitation possible. If these models verify and this trough does set up, we could get some much needed rain here as we go through the later portion of June. Check it out as we go on in through hour 348, it's 16 days out. So take it with a grain of salt, but it does kind of show the precipitation potential as we go on in through the end of June. And this is looking at the GFS Ensemble mean. So we're starting from now. You can kind of see this ridge out over the Pacific Ocean. This trough here is what we're dealing with. That's what's kicking up the winds today and the onshore flow across the area. Ridge builds back in for a little bit, but then we get this retrograde of the ridge here, and this allows this very deep trough to open up right on the Pacific Northwest. I mean, you can't draw it up much better than that. Just bullseyes here. By the time you get in towards Saturday, this is moving in, and by Sunday, it's over top here. And who knows how long that's going to hang out just yet. But you can kind of see this ridging out over the Pacific here, which would keep the troughing going in turn over the Pacific Northwest. You go out and extend it a little bit more, and this troughing is just kind of relentless here. Even in the ensemble runs here off the west coast of North America, looking 300 hours out. Take that with a grain of salt, but it is kind of a strong signal. This is looking at national blended models. This might be overdoing it for Seattle today. I'm looking at my weather station right now. It's still only 58 degrees, and it's about noon out there. Tomorrow, a little bit chillier, but then we bounce back a little bit Thursday and Friday, maybe a little bit above average before that trough really starts to roll back in Saturday. And look at Sunday highs, maybe up only towards 60 for Seattle. And then you see Monday, and look at the chilly temperatures up in the higher terrain as well. Again, could get some snowfall for the higher elevations as we go on in towards early next week. So backcountry people, be prepared for that. And of course, we will talk about that in some more detail coming up. But as you go on the extended a little bit, it does show a bounce back in some of the temperatures, but that's looking way out there. So we won't put too much stock in that just yet. Here's the drought monitor here. This was released June 8th. You can see the yellow is the abnormally dry. They did put a little bit of moderate drought up there towards Bellingham, some Skagit, Whatcom County here, northeast or northwest Washington. But at least we're not dealing with extreme and exceptional drought as of right now, June 8th, 2023. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. This was issued yesterday. This goes through June 22nd. Look at that bullseye in Oregon, Washington, Idaho there. 6 to 10 day precipitation. Much of the Pacific Northwest is included in that as also. Here we go, sea surface temperature anomalies. So this is looking at May. You can see these days just rolling by here. And with those days rolling by, you see that El Nino really reaching across the equatorial Pacific. Notice when we start this back in March, there's still plenty of blues across the region where we measure whether it's an El Nino or La Nina here. And you can clearly see this turn yellow and then orange and then even darker shades of orange as El Nino conditions take over across the equatorial Pacific there. So we'll watch this. We'll talk about this as we get closer to it. The biggest effects from this here across Pacific Northwest are likely to be seen as we move into the later fall and winter months here coming up. So, it's nothing to worry about too much just yet. But anyway, yeah, enjoy that cool down for those of you guys who like the cooler weather here with this onshore flow. And then we'll watch that trough closely. The European and the GFS showing it pretty good model agreement. We'll watch it over the next few days and we'll see what it might bring. Could even bring some thunderstorms, some upper elevation snowfall, some gusty winds, and some much needed rain. So anyway, I hope you guys are liking these videos. I just got back from Denver this morning here. So probably going to go take a nap after I do my briefings here. And yeah, so we'll do this again tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see, as always, what the weather models do and if they're going to continue to bring that sharp trough down over the Pacific Northwest. And yeah, we'll check again tomorrow, and I'll talk to you guys then.